Welcome to the channel, English Epics. I didn't come up with this clever trick myself. I saw it a long time ago in some comedy. There was a clerk who kept leaving work for personal matters, but he always left his jacket on the back of his chair. And wherever he went, whether around the office or outside, he always carried a folder with papers in his hand, creating the illusion that he was present at his workplace, or, at the very least, showing that he wasn't idly wandering around but hurrying on important business. I didn't invent it, but I used it regularly and successfully. "Ron, darling," my fiancée Sue said over breakfast, "I'll need to stay late this evening." "Did something happen?" I asked. "Work-related?" No, she looked a little embarrassed, though I couldn't quite tell what was wrong yet. "It's just that Chuck, his girlfriend, left him." "Ah, Chuck, your ex. And?" "Well, he called me yesterday and he's really upset. He needs some support." "Sorry, Sue. Let me get this straight. Your ex, the one who dumped you, is upset because he got dumped by the woman he left you for, and you want to support him." "Well, yes." She blushed, clearly aware that what she was saying wasn't right, yet she continued her speech. "Of course, it doesn't mean anything for our relationship. It's just friendly support." "Sue," I couldn't hold back my exclamation. "This is absolutely wrong. Remember, he left you. You weren't just upset, you were devastated, depressed. I was the one who helped you out of that. I'm just upset that he's suffering right now." She frowned. "I feel responsible. We had little time to talk, and the timing was extremely unfortunate." In fact, I later realized that she deliberately chose not to bring up this issue in the evening, simply because she knew the truth about her position. She knew something I hadn't yet figured out, that I was the backup plan, the safe harbor where she could wait out the storm. And our morning conversation ended like this: "You don't owe him anything. You're in a new relationship with me. And he's in the past. He left you for someone else. You want me to feel guilty about his condition?" I didn't expect such cruelty. From you. I'm going to him no matter what, and don't you dare try to stop me. And you're just jealous. You're simply insecure as a man. She didn't come back that evening, or that night, or the next morning. Her phone didn't answer. It wasn't switched off. I had just been blocked. Everything became clear. Maybe I should have been glad we didn't have time to get married. But that's the kind of thought that comes much later. In the moment, all you feel is the realization that you were deceived for a year, that you were used. "I'm staying with him." "We both realized we made a mistake," she said that evening, showing up at my place without a greeting, without any attempt to justify herself or apologize. "And what about me?" "Sorry," she said, almost indifferently. So all this time, I was just the backup plan. He was plan A, and I was plan B. Don't be ridiculous. It was a mistake. I honestly thought things were over between us, and I was sincere. With you. "Sue," I said with a bitter smirk, "what if I told you I'm depressed now? Would you leave him and come back to me? Is that it?" She only shrugged in response and started hurriedly gathering her things. Not everything, of course. Over the past year, my apartment had filled with quite a lot of her stuff. I spent the next few days in a dark depression. I changed the very next day. The thought of her coming by with Chuck while I was at work was unbearable. Walking through my home, sorting through our things, and who knows, maybe the guy would even want to mark his territory, have sex with my fiancé on my bed. They probably did come by and couldn't get in, because Sue sent me a text saying they'd come by on Saturday to pick up her things. Fittingly, after removing me from her block list just to send a text, she immediately added me back again. A colleague of mine, someone I have a reasonably friendly relationship with, someone I can chat with about non-work stuff, listened when I told him about the breakup with Sue. After thinking for a moment, he said, "You know, when they come to pick up her things, it might hit you really hard. I mean, they're basically in their honeymoon phase right now, you get me? Even if they don't say anything cruel like mocking you or anything, it'll feel like they're laughing at you. Want me to come by for support? Or I can even handle it for you. I don't mind. I'm just not sure what you'd want to give them and what you'd rather keep. I thanked him, but at that moment, I was staring at my jacket on the back of my chair, the same jacket that had been working overtime that week to create the illusion of my presence in the office. I could barely stand being there, let alone getting any work done. I just wanted to get drunk. And I often slipped away somewhere, just to avoid seeing anyone or talking to anyone. When they arrived in a rented minivan, I put on a carefree expression, or at least, I tried to. But I couldn't miss their smug smiles and the way they kept exchanging glances. And that only made things worse for me. I was pulling Sue's belongings out of drawers and closets, and I wanted to cry. Then suddenly, it was like something snapped inside me, like a spring broke. I suddenly remembered school, remembered the bullying I once went through, how I had to stand up to almost the entire class. No, it never escalated into full-blown fights, but they did try to isolate me back then, and I probably wouldn't have been able to do anything about it if I'd acted like the typical outcast. Instead, I responded by boycotting them right back. I ignored the wall of ice. I would come in each morning and cheerfully greet everyone, not expecting a response. I didn't ask for help or pose any questions. I acted as if nothing had happened, kept smiling. I even took a pleasure in it, walking past some of my enemies and casually saying things like, "Oh, Frank, nice pin. I'll have to get one like that," without waiting for a reply. Then I'd walk away, leaving the idiot standing there with a puzzled look. Was it a boycott? Or was it some kind of conversation? I only had to fight once, when one of the guys tried to take my pen before class. But after that, no one attempted physical confrontation again. What remained was just that invisible wall of ice. They held out for about a month, and then I got to have some fun deciding who I'd lift the boycott from and who I'd continue to ignore. That's probably the advantage of being an introvert, independence from the crowd. Well, not complete independence, of course, but enough. It helped me back then, and now I put the mask back on too. "Hey guys, why are you in such a hurry?" I said with an almost natural smile. "Someone gave me a bottle of excellent wine, but I can't drink it all by myself, and drinking alone is kind of boring." They exchanged surprised glances. Sue shrugged, and her ex, who I knew enjoyed a drink, nodded. I laughed, almost sincerely, and brought out the bottle and some glasses. "To you too," I said, raising my glass before they could react. Honestly, it's wonderful when people can hold on to affection, to love, for so long. I'm a little jealous. Really? "It's amazing that neither of you gets jealous," I added with a wink to the ex. Not everyone can enjoy themselves knowing someone else's juice was just there. I mean, if you don't know, if she slept with someone in secret, it's no big deal. But to know for sure that just hours ago, something was poured in there, and even after a rinse there could still be a few tail-wagging swimmers left, I winked again at the guy. Now imagine scooping them out with your tongue. "What the hell is wrong with you?" Sue exclaimed. "Sorry, I always say something tactless," I mumbled awkwardly, then turned to the ex and added, "Forget it. Forget it." I was never really into her anyway. "Yes, we didn't do that," Sue shouted heatedly, her face instantly turning red. We always use protection. Over the course of our year-long relationship, there had been different situations. Sure, I often used protection with her, but toward the end of our relationship, Sue had started using birth control pills. There you go. I smiled. She's not lying. Neither of us is. Sue set down her glass and snapped at Chuck. "We're leaving." "Sue, come on, let us finish just a little," I said with a smile. "Okay," I said something tactless. "Sorry. We're all adults here. Wait for him outside. He'll catch up with you in a minute." And without asking, I topped off Chuck's glass. I was right. He couldn't leave a glass unfinished. Sue, shooting us both an angry look, walked out. I leaned toward Chuck and whispered conspiratorially, "Try from behind." Tight as hell, I rolled my eyes dreamily. She might resist a bit at first, but if you give a little pressure, she ends up loving it. Well, I chuckled. Come on. We both know what she's like, right? Maybe one day the three of us could work something out. I never quite had the guts to bring it up, but maybe you'd have. Better luck convincing her. The ex's face darkened, and he stared at me with anger. He set down his empty glass and walked out without a word. I let out a quiet sigh of relief. The performance was complete. Whether he believed it or not didn't matter. What mattered was that I got them to stop laughing at me. And if I managed to ruin their evening and plant a seed of doubt in the ex's mind, then I'd already had my little revenge. Let Sue see I wasn't exactly falling apart. Sue called the next day, hysterically demanding I tell the ex that I'd made everything up. I immediately realized she had put me on speakerphone, intentionally for his benefit, so I kept up the act. Sue, come on. What's the big deal if I said we did it from behind? What? Is he that naive? You liked it, didn't you? You bastard. You never did that, she screamed. Sue, don't freak out. If it's that important to you, I'll say whatever you want. I'll even say we never did anything adventurous at all. Want me to tell him we only had missionary sex, twice a year? Hand him the phone. Is he nearby? Let me talk to him. I promise I'll clear it up. You pig. I hate you, she yelled and hung up. And I still love you, I said hopelessly into the phone that had already gone dead. A day later, she showed up, starting an argument right at the door. I let her in. Once again, she demanded I clear things up with her ex, and once again I played along, suspecting she might be recording the conversation. Then, things took an even more delightful turn. Her ex showed up. Your guy's here, I told her. Should I open the door? He's not too jealous, is he? Oh, right. We've already established that. Shut up, she muttered. I'll wait in the bedroom. I don't want to explain anything. I opened the door while fastening my pants just enough for the ex to notice. Oh, Chuck, I exclaimed cheerfully. Good to see you. I stretched out my hand a little too eagerly, so much so that it came off fake, then quickly pulled it back. Sorry, dirty hand. Let me wipe it off. As if to check what I'd just said, I brought my palm to my nose, sniffed, nodded. Yep, 1 second. I grabbed a pack of wet wipes I always keep on the table near the door and demonstratively wiped my hand. Want a drink? I'm here about Sue, Chuck began grimly. And what makes you think she's here with me? I asked, quickly glancing at the bedroom door. She could be anywhere. Besides, she loves you. The ex looked me straight in the eye. I don't recall saying I was looking for her here. Are you alone? Look, why don't we talk outside? I replied, answering his question with another and glancing again toward the bedroom door. Wait for me. I'll be right out. Sure, he said. Just need to check something first. And with that, he shoved me aside, something I didn't resist at all, and stepped toward the bedroom door, flinging it open. It turned out perfectly. Sue had probably been crouching by the bedroom door, eavesdropping on our conversation, and when it suddenly swung open, she lost her balance and fell into the living room. This isn't what you think, I blurted out immediately, even though no one had asked. We didn't do anything. Chuck froze, his eyes darting between me and Sue. I launched into a rapid-fire explanation, as if Chuck had actually said something. Chuck, don't worry. There's no reason to be jealous. Just because a guy and a girl end up in a bedroom doesn't mean anything. Besides, she loves you. Keep it together. Nothing's happened between us since she decided to be with you. Well, almost. Nothing. Nothing happened, I just came over to talk, Sue mumbled. We wouldn't have had time for much in just an hour anyway, I added. You know she likes it to last, and so do I. Both of you shut up, Chuck barked. I need to be alone. With that, he turned around and stormed out the door. Sue looked at me in confusion, clearly unsure of what to do next. "It's better not to bother him right now," I said. "Give him at least a couple of hours. He needs time to cool off." That was a mess. "Here." I took the phone from her hand and pressed the power button, turning it off. "That's so you don't end up saying something you'll both regret in the heat of the moment." Of course, the real reason was that I didn't want her ex to reach her. I wanted him to imagine anything but the truth. "I unintentionally made things worse for you." "I'm sorry," I said with a smile. "Have some tea, calm down a bit, and then I'll take you to him myself. I promise I'll explain everything, apologize, say I had a breakdown, that it was just a tantrum. You'll see, he'll understand." "Why are you doing this?" Sue snapped angrily. "Do you honestly think you can win me back like this? If it weren't for your behavior, we could have stayed friends. I didn't even hold a grudge. I didn't. But now, you're an asshole, Ron." I kept apologizing, humbly, promising to make everything right, while inside, I was savoring my revenge. I wasn't going to suffer alone. Sue gradually calmed down, and we even had some tea. I kept talking, basically just distracting her with small talk, secretly pleased that she had forgotten about her phone being turned off, which meant, if Chuck had tried calling her, he now had every reason to be jealous. And I was right. About 40 minutes later, Chuck came back. Just before he arrived, Sue warned me, "Don't you dare say anything else like before." "I gave you my word," I said, and I kept it. I simply placed a torn condom wrapper on the table by the entrance, right where Chuck couldn't miss it, and he didn't. When I opened the door, his eyes immediately fell on the golden square. His face twisted into a grimace. He shot me a furious glare, then turned and stormed off. "What?" Sue jumped up. "What did you say to him?" "Nothing, I swear," I replied. "I'll drive you to him now and do exactly what I promised." I really did drive her to Chuck's place, and I walked her all the way to his apartment door. She tried to refuse, but I acted like a gentleman and carried 2 bags of her smaller things. I made sure to stay on her left side so she wouldn't notice the left side of my face too closely. But when Chuck opened the door, I deliberately turned so he'd see the lipstick mark on my neck. Now, any woman would have recognized it for what it was. Just a smudge of lipstick, a streak, not an actual kiss mark. But Chuck was just a guy. How would he know the difference? In any case, the message landed exactly the way I intended. I went home, and for the first time, my mood, if not great, was at least uplifted. I suddenly realized I no longer wanted Sue back. That whole performance had ripped her out of my heart. 3 days later, in the evening, I answered the doorbell. Sue was standing there, clearly upset about something. "Can I come in?" I poured her some gin and opened a can of beer. "We broke up," she said. "He kept accusing me of sleeping with you these past few days. You set it all up on purpose, didn't you?" I tried to explain to him. "It was your revenge, wasn't it? You don't have to say anything, I already know. We said so many things to each other. You know, in a way, I'm glad you did all that. I had really forgotten what he was like. And when we started fighting, I remembered. It was a good lesson. And I realized I don't need him. I need you. I realized this past year was the best year of my life. No one's ever cared for me the way you did." Chuck. I don't ever want to see him again. I wrapped my arms around her, pulled her closer, and whispered softly into her warm ear, "I'm glad you realized that, and I'm glad you came." "All my things are still at his place," Sue said as she leaned in to kiss me. "That's nothing," I managed to say just before our lips met. And after a long kiss, I added, "He won't ruin them, will he? We can always pick them up later." It was a night of wonderful intimacy. Sue was both tender and passionate. She kissed every part of me. Her lips were everywhere, and her tongue explored every inch of my body. When I put on protection before we made love for the first time that night, she looked surprised. But I reassured her, saying I trusted her completely. It was just Chuck. She didn't dwell on the incident, though I did catch a fleeting shadow cross her face. In the morning, I brought her coffee in bed and took my time admiring her sweet, sleepy face, her serene smile, and the gentle look in her eyes as she gazed at me. Just before leaving the house, I kissed her again, and with slight embarrassment, asked if she might please me one last time. Sue, who just a few weeks ago, before our breakup, would have been outraged by such a self-centered request, simply smiled sweetly this time and obediently knelt down. We drove to Chuck's place, walked up to the door of his apartment, and I gently pulled Sue close and kissed the corner of her lips. "I'm going to miss you, Sue," I said. "I'll always remember our year together, and the farewell gift you gave me will forever remain one of my fondest memories." Was all she managed to say, her mouth slightly open as she stared at me helplessly. "I can wait in the car while you grab the essentials. And tell me, where should I take you? Where will you live now that both your ex and I have thrown you out? A friend's place? A hotel? What do you mean?" "I thought we—" No. I just wanted to try you out precisely when you were hoping to fix things. I figured you put in extra effort. And I was right. Thank you for listening until the end. See you in the next episode of English Epics. Take care of yourself and your loved ones. Goodbye.